Reanimator is one of those movies where zombies run around and they do weird stuff and they go booga booga booga. You like that kind of thing, right? That's fun for you, isn't it? Look, man, sometimes movies just got a simple appeal, okay? What do you want from me? Is that okay? Is that okay with you? Every so often on this channel, I like to do little forays into franchises, where we take a closer look at a classic series of horror films, or a Wishmaster series of horror films. And I gotta be honest here, I'll take pretty much any excuse I can to talk about Reanimator, directed by legendary B-movie icon Stuart Gordon. I mean, come on! I wear this shirt a lot. That's one of my main shirts. Loosely based on a short story by noted racist H.P. Lovecraft, Reanimator tells the tale of Herbert West, a medical student who has developed a new kind of ooze. The secret of this ooze is that it brings the dead back to... well, not back to life, really, but, you know, just like less dead than they were. It's not really consistent. Like, usually you become a crazy mixed up zombie. But sometimes you more or less stay the same. It's really a crapshoot. West is, of course, played to perfection by Jeffrey Combs, a man who is either one of your favorite actors or you're not familiar with him. It is inconceivable to me that you would be familiar with his body of work and not consider him one of your favorite actors. I will not conceive of it. If you ask me to conceive of it, I will tell you to leave. Also, technically, I guess there are other actors in the movie. Most notably, Barbara Crampton's in it. That's her breakout role. You might recognize her from some horny thumbnails I made. And this film will be no less horny towards her, but don't get excited. It's not in a cool way. It's not fun. It's in an upsetting way. David Gale is also there around. He plays the primary villain, Dr. Hill. He's a standout. He does some excellent grunting in this one. Adding to the film's pedigree, it was produced by Brian Yuzna, another B-movie legend who would go on to direct the two sequels, Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator, as well as the movie Society, but much more importantly, he would also direct the film Rottweiler, which I mention exclusively so I can show you this. Here's the thing about Reanimator. Herbert West is so driven towards his goal of conquering death. He wastes no time. Like, if he sees a dead body, let me tell you, he sees a few. He reanimates it, simple as. When he's not reanimating, he's sitting around thinking about reanimation. He just loves reanimating. That type of thing is his whole bag, baby. Which is why the movie opens with a sequence of a very frigged up looking zombo that West reanimated with his patented reagent. This frigged up zombo was, of course, Dr. Hans Gruber. Yes, you heard that correctly. The same name as the villain in Die Hard, which was released 3 years later. I think it's a coincidence. Dr. Gruber says, "Yippee-ki-yay, Victor Falco," which... let me back up here. Jeffrey Combs played a character by that name in a Ninja Turtle cartoon. And sometimes when they censor that line in Die Hard, they say, "Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon." So what I did was I made an excellent joke. And so Gruber attacks Herbert West. The faculty at the teaching hospital in Zurich don't seem pleased about any of that, and they expel him. West, not Gruber. Gruber's dead. After some opening credits set to music that is, let's say, suspiciously similar to Hitchcock's Psycho theme, we cut to Miskatonic University, because Lovecraft. There, med student Dan Kane, not to be confused with Dean Kane, is trying to resuscitate a dead patient. The other doctors chide him for trying for too long, saying he should learn to let go, but Dan really cares about saving lives, which is apparently quite a bad quality in a doctor? Who knew? I wonder if that motivation will ever be exploited by someone else later in this movie. Also, Dan Kane? Like from Bible? The first murderer? Like how this movie has murders in it? Pretty deep stuff, don't you think? I'm smart for noticing. He then wheels the cadaver into the morgue. Please make special note of the morgue. You can probably guess that in a movie about reanimating the dead, the morgue will become an important set piece later. There, Dan meets West, who is just transferred to Miskatonic U. He's speaking with stuffy old Dean Halsey, who also introduces him to Dr. Hill, and they don't get along, because Hill allegedly plagiarized a study by Dr. Gruber, but also because Hill is adamant that nothing can return from brain death, which obviously Herbert West disagrees with, because it's his whole entire personality. They're fast enemies, and West breaks a bunch of pencils about it. You do not tell this man you can't reanimate. Don't tell him you can't, and don't bother telling him it's not a good idea. It never seems to matter to him whether or not it would be a good idea. That night, Dan is trying to canoodle with his fiancée Megan, the daughter of Dean Halsey, and also a medical student, I think, but it's not clear. And they're interrupted twice. First, by Dan's cat, Rufus. And I think you know what this means. When there's a cat in a horror movie, we can see the writing on the wall. Rufus is not long for this world. I have fulfilled my contractual obligation by telling you that. Secondly, by Herbert, responding to an ad Dan put out for a roommate. He moves in and turns the basement into his reanimating laboratory. He's not a good roommate, you might be surprised to learn. Now, it's been almost a week since he's reanimated something, so he's getting the shakes. Immediately after he moves in, mysteriously, if you can believe it, Rufus is found dead and in West's fridge. He claims he found Rufus dead and just put him in the fridge so he wouldn't stink up the apartment, and the movie doesn't come out and say it, but he probably killed that cat, right? Because the thing about Herbert West is he's not evil, per se. He's just single-minded. His pursuit of his goals will always take precedence over anything else. It would almost be noble if it weren't clearly an ego thing, because he wants to prove his theory's correct and establish himself as a genius scientist. If he did kill the cat, it's not just to be an asshole, it's to get a lab specimen to test on. He's so tunnel-visioned that he wouldn't think twice about killing his roommate's cat, because he's like, well, I can just bring it back to life anyway, right? No harm, no foul. A lesser movie would perhaps make it clear whether or not West had killed Rufus, but Reanimator leaves it ambiguous enough that it's almost creepier. You never get a clear window into just how far he's willing to go. But obviously, he's gonna reanimate the cat, right? Let's not kid ourselves here. He's the reanimator, not the allowed to decomposer. And the noise of West struggling with the zombie Rufus, who of course goes berserk, alerts Dan, who comes into the basement and returns Rufus to the dead position. Looks like the jig is up for West. He has to tell Dan all about his reagent, and Dan's like, I don't think so, buddy. Probably the cat was already dead, and you pretended he wasn't for a reason that is not really clear. And Herbert's like, okay, well, kind of dead now, right? It's if I could bring him back now, kind of proof that I can reanimate, wouldn't it? You see, if I did that. Hey, guess what? Rufus is reanimated again, and they kill him again. That's 3 out of 9 lives down. So now Dan's on board with West's whole deal. He gets it. It makes sense to him. It makes sense to him because he killed his cat. He tries to explain it to stuffy old Dean Halsey, who immediately expels him and Herbert West and threatens them with criminal charges, which seems like an overreaction until you consider that Dan is porking his daughter. You see, Dean Halsey is an old-fashioned guy, Nowadays, we don't think about porking that much, everybody's jizzing everywhere, but Dean Halsey's a bit out of touch. How are Dan and West gonna get out of this jam? Go to literally any other university on Earth? No. They do what any sensible person would do. They sneak into Chekhov's morgue by cleverly disguising West as a tray of meatballs, so they can reanimate somebody to prove they can do that, I guess.
You ain't got my lunch under there, have you?
Yeah, one meatball run over by a semi.
Ooh, meatball? Just put your shoes on.
I know, I misled you a little bit. He's not actually in that scene pretending he's wheeling around a tray of meatballs. I think the movie would be better if he were. So they squirt their special ooze into a corpse, oh boy the sentences I get to write for this channel, and bring it back from the dead, and it does not go well, as you might expect. At this point, they should perhaps be reconsidering their methods, since everyone and everything they've brought back from the dead has immediately attacked them. Maybe, tie up the body before bringing it back to life in case it goes bonkers, like every other reanimated thing in this movie has done so far? But Herbert West is the reanimator, not the reconsiderer. Dean Halsey finds out there in the morgue, and he's having none of this malarkey. He's old-fashioned. He doesn't believe people who were expelled should be hanging out in the morgue doing experiments. He goes to give them a piece of his mind. Whoops! The zombie bonked him on the head to death. Okay, let's not panic. Let's just think this through. We accidentally killed a man, oopsie daisy, Also, he's my fiance's father, so that's not great. And it's all because we were playing God with our reagent. One lesson we could learn from this, one thing we definitely wouldn't want to keep doing, is make more zombies, right? Because every time we do that, it seems like something goes wrong. So maybe we should cool it on the reanimating front. But on the other end, of course they do. Of course they reanimate Halsey. Herbert does not hesitate for a fucking second. My man does one thing and he does it all day, and it goes about as well as you'd expect. Dean Halsey, now trapped in some sort of liminal space between life and death by our heroes, is institutionalized and placed under the care of Dr. Hill. One small problem with this arrangement, though, you see, Hill's specialty as a doctor is free will. He discovered the part of the brain that is specifically responsible for free will. Free will is a physical phenomenon, you see, and he has developed a type of lobotomy that allows him to remove that part of the brain, making that person his slave. And when he does his special slave lobotomy on Halsey, he discovers that this dude's all kinds of dead. And he puts 2 and 2 together and figures out Herbert West must have done it. Because, I mean, come on. Dude's always talking about bringing people back from the dead. And frankly, like, if you knew nothing else, in this situation, that there was somebody going around and reanimating the dead, and Herbert West was a guy you knew, you'd figure it was him. He has a vibe. Hill goes to West's lab to blackmail him into giving him credit for the invention of Reagent, even though, I cannot stress this enough, it seems as though it mainly turns corpses into berserk monsters rather than harmless corpses. Not sure how useful that's going to be for anything other than ruining funerals, but okay. Pretty tense situation. A lot of variables to consider. Don't panic, just think things through. And West immediately hits Dr. Hill with a shovel and then cuts his head off. And it's interesting that the only person that West kills on purpose throughout the whole movie is the one person who threatens to take credit away from him. That's enough to make him kill, showing that he's not doing this for altruistic reasons. Like, he doesn't just care about helping people not die, like he wants the credit. But of course, killing isn't enough for Dr. West. He can't come unless he reanimates the body, or I guess the head in this case. And also the body separately, I guess. Why not? Why not do that? Why not just reanimate the person's body and then turn your back to it and not think about it? What possible reason could you have not to do that? Hill and Hillbody escape, and so then this part of the movie happens. A new part of the movie is about to begin. Get ready for it. Hill gets Halsey, who is Megan's dad, to kidnap her because Hill is obsessed with Megan. He has some sort of sexual fixation on her, and then what he does is there's a long extended sequence of him sexually assaulting her that is mostly played for laughs. So that's in the movie. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. Dan and West arrived to save Megan, but Hill reanimated and lobotomized all the corpses in the morgue to make an army of zombie guys. Halsey is then moved by the cries of his daughter to temporarily regain some of his humanity, despite the 2 separate humanity-destroying sci-fi surgeries that had been performed on him. And also, just moments earlier, he was seemingly okay with allowing a colleague to sexually assault her in front of him, but okay, whatever. That buys Dan and Megan some time to escape. Meanwhile, Herbert West, noted genius, his idea, the thing he decides to do in this situation is, what he does is he takes his reagent and he overdoses Dr. Hill with it. And that, as you might expect, causes Dr. Hill to both explode and also turn into a tentacle monster. And I don't know why West thought that would be a good idea. You have so many options here. Like, hit him with a shovel again. That was very effective the last time you did it. In his last moments, he tosses Dan his bag with all of his reagent and notes and instructs him to protect his life's work as he is dragged away to his death. Because he dies. There's no way he'll be alive in the sequels without any explanation, right? Right? Okay, so Dan and Megan are in the clear until this zombo strangles Megan, and Dan, once again, cannot resuscitate his patient. And it's the whole thing is brought full circle. You'd think this is the moment where he has to learn his lesson, which is that you're not God. You can't save everybody. Death, there's no coming back from. You got to accept it. Instead, though, what he does do is he reanimates Megan. Fuck me, I guess. Okay, whatever, the end. Reanimator is a total blast. There's some ickiness, don't get me wrong. be aware of that going in, but overall, it's a good time with lots of cheap effects and goofy zombos. There's a real slapdash quality to it, which works really well with the surreal deadpan comedy tone that the movie strikes. It skates between this splattery monster movie, a slapstick comedy, and a lurid EC Comics type of horror morality play, and it all just kind of works. Sure, you can tell sometimes that somebody is just holding a puppet to their bodies and jumping around, and the headless body effects are just adorable. But that's the charm, right? It's a little hokey. You gotta buy in. You gotta let the spirit of the movie move you. The movie does not take itself all that seriously, but it never overplays its hand and winks at the camera, except for one time. Dan does have a Talking Heads poster in his bedroom, because the villain of the movie is a talking head. All right, I'll let you have it. It's pretty subtly placed. They're just having a larf. And it is impossible to overstate how perfect Jeffrey Combs is for the role, as indeed he is for any role he's ever cast in, and most roles that he is not cast in. Whether you need a Wei-Yun, a The Question, any kind of Edgar Allan Poe, or whoever he played on Gotham, a very minor role in his career, which I only bring up exclusively so I can show you this. Jeffrey Combs is always fun to watch or listen to. He's also a prolific voice actor. You can slot him into pretty much any Star Trek and there's a spot for him, sometimes more than one. He's in more Star Treks than he isn't in, but he excels at spooky guys. And Herbert West is about as spooky as a guy can get, let me tell you. He's like a reverse serial killer. Like his thing is bringing people back to life, which is the opposite of killing people, but it doesn't feel better. He's also just like so wonderfully smug, and he's always putting people down with pithy one-liners, and clearly shows contempt for anyone he views as not on his level, which is in this movie mostly just Megan. Probably because he's in love with Dan, I choose to believe that. Next time, we'll watch Bride of Reanimator, a movie I've never actually seen, but traditionally, I do like movies that are about brides of things, so I'm excited. Why don't you reanimate my analytics by liking the video, slash that like button, and subscribing to me. Thanks as always to the gibbering masses of flesh over on Patreon. Special thanks in particular to Ramona Montagani, Masked and Ginger, James Garford, Devin Kaler, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Definitely Todd. And I, Bobby Duke, star of the channel, want to thank Danwich Games, Jay Torney, Schadenfraulein, Lanston Tyne, Sirius Bengal, Rowan Everly, Cato Moore, Carpad, Josh Moniz, Trevor Collins, Hyla Tracy, Louisa Prito, and Jesse. All of yous is also the star of the channel alongside me, Bobby Duke, star of the channel. If any of yous out there watching want to support Scaredy Cats, go on over to patreon.com/scaredycats. Or don't, leave a like on the video, what do I care?